Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, we are continuing back right where we left off with the prep of this car for paint. And in this episode, we're also going to be tapping the door for the installation of a passenger mirror. And we're going to stop work to check out the solar eclipse that comes overhead. So we got a lot to get done, and we're just gonna jump right in it. Please see the description for times of the various features.
Okay, so I've let the primer surfacer dry for a couple of days. I'm going to start sanding down the body, sanding down the primer surfacer, and I'm going to start with the 320 and on the orbital. And the purpose of this is just to knock down the roughness. Sometimes when you spray this stuff, you get some rough spray. This will take it off quickly, and we'll just use a little bit of water with has a splash of simple green in that water to keep us nice and wet here so we don't make so much dust. Now we have, I finished drying it off, and I've wiped it clean. So now what I like to do is just sort of look over things and kind of look for scratches, deep scratches that are still showing up and so on. And I'm gonna have to start block sanding this now, and hopefully things like that will disappear by the time all the block sanding is done. But that's pretty deep, so we might have to add a little more filler there, or more primer surfacer after we sand it down. But the and then I've noticed a few spots where actually I need to work this a little more. I might need a little more filler right there. It just didn't come out exactly right there. The idea is to get this all smooth. No orange peel here, no sanding scratches remaining, nothing, just all smooth. So we're gonna get started with 400 grit paper. I've got it on a long block.
What you're looking at here is called a guide coat. This is created by just simply spraying some black spray paint over the hood, and the idea is you sand until you don't see any more black. If you still see some black, that means you got some deep scratches or some imperfections.
But we see the black paint sticks to certain areas where there was body filler work done, and certain areas that just some anomaly is there. That it's good that we're picking it up now, we're finding it. If we keep sanding it and it doesn't go away, then we might need to add a little filler or something, a little glazing putty in certain areas, like if we have some deep scratches. Sanding this fender down reveals right here we have a low spot. You can feel it right there, and a little bit of a high spot right there. So we actually had some high filler here, and that needs to be sanded down even a little more than it is now. And overall, just little bits and areas where we see little imperfections that we'll have to work out one by one. I'm just going to tap them down a little. And I'm going to be going over this whole area as well. So I rough it up wherever I'm going to be going over. That way it just doesn't flake off when you sand it. And at the same time, I also use this to feather out. There were some areas where we just had too much filler, and I could just easily take that out here as well. And then along here too, I've been having to reshape this because this was badly damaged. I could see when I had this gray primer on that it needed to be shaped a little better. So this is what I'll be using for the applying these for these little small scratches. What it is a finishing putty that sands a little easier than the normal lightweight filler, so that we don't disturb, I guess, the surrounding primer. First, I'm just wetting every area that we've sanded, and then I'll come along with a firmer drag on it. So on this door here, when I feel it, I feel something just kind of not right about it. I don't, and it might be in my own head, but I want to make sure. So what I'm going to do is I've just got some 150, put it on tape, put it on this level, and I'm just going to run it over it again, just to expose any high or low spots. And so from that, you can see that my suspicions were confirmed. There is a little bit of waviness still, and so you can tell by the high spots, low spots, low spot, low spot, high spot. So with me doing this with this 150 on a level here, we're shaping the filler that was put on there. And of course I did put it on a little thick here because of all the work, and but it's a good idea to go ahead and do this. Even if we do have to put more filler on, the results will be just so much better, that we would don't have a wavy door. So I'm just going around every spot now where I've added a little glazing putty and knocking it down with 400, because this glazing putty does sand pretty easily. So I'm able to get it nice and smooth, not introducing new scratches with just using the 400. So that's really nice. And we're just perfecting it, going to each spot where we put some of that. And each spot just takes a few minutes. And you want to sand the area, but then you also want to sand past the area. That way you're leveraging out the good area against the bad area. I'll show you something someone showed me a long time ago. Is if you want to feel the area for waves with your hand, right? The way to do it, let's say you suspect there's waves here. This is not the way to do it. The way to do it is this way. And that's because by that way, when you're going this way across the direction of your fingers, each finger can sense a difference in heights, right? And going this way, it allows your fingers to do that sensing. This way, it's just not as good. It's just not as good as going like this. Okay, so now approximately an hour, say an hour and a half later, we've gotten all the imperfections out of the rear hood, this fender, that door, and that fender. So roughly half of the car we've gone over and fixed these little spots. I'll be having to reshoot primer on these little areas and feather them in, and up here as well, and the entire door. Very often we will get shipping around these windshield wiper areas here. So you want to rough sand it back so that there's no more chipping. Okay, so now that I've got this whole door here that really needs another full coat of primer surfacer, and I do not really wish to get out the gun right now and get all this overspray. So what I'm gonna do, I've mixed up some primer surface here, just using the normal formula. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on with a little foam roller here. The reason I'm putting it on thin is because I want this to mimic the same process as when you spray it on, so that we don't get any strange things going on. I don't want it too thick and then not dry correctly, right? I just want to do it just like it was coming out of the gun. And now I'm going to allow this to dry for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'll put another coat on. And while we're waiting for that to dry, we can cover up some of these other areas where we have body fillers showing. And if you're wondering why I'm using such a ridiculous brush handle, roller handle, it's because I can't find my small roller handle, and sometimes you just got to keep going. And one of the things to note is that our door is sticking out a little bit here, just a little this way, and that wasn't noticeable at all before when this thing had a 1/4 inch of Bondo on it. But we can easily fix that by adjusting this right here. I'm going to loosen this up, and then we're going to move it inboard over the new primer.
Now, just to make sure we really have the door flat, I'm going to go ahead and sand on this door with some rough paper again, just to really make sure.
New paint roller. You get it pretty close to streak free.
Now, because I use the roll-on primer here, I'm just going ahead and using a 220 grit, a little rougher than I would normally. The rocker panels, these are often so banged up on 914s. Do yourself a favor and just buy a new set if yours are really damaged. The amount of time it takes to get these to look good again can sometimes really cost more than purchasing a new pair.
And this, for me, is undoubtedly the part I hate the most, is sanding these little vent areas, because each one of them has to be individually sanded on every side and every crevice. Now I'm doing the final sanding of 400 on the remaining outliers, which was this door, part of this fender, a little bit here, and a little bit here, and maybe one other two spots. But once I get that done, then the whole car will be at the 400 grit level.
And you can leave your car at the 400 grit levels until, let's say, a week before painting, and then you would take it to the 600 grit. That way, if it gets dirty, you can just sand it off and expose a fresh surface for paint.
Okay, so we've got our car in primer. There are just a few blemishes that need to get kind of fixed with a little more primer. I don't want to get out full primer, so what I'm going to do is use this stuff, which is the same thing as, you know, as this stuff, but it's more convenient, and I don't have to get my compressor on running and so on. And so I'm going to go ahead and use this. You've got to shake it up for a few minutes, and what this is it's a 2K, and what that means, it's a two-part, and it mixes internally when you mix it. So what you have to do is take this off of here, and we take this little red button here and push it here and engage. Okay. And now we have to shake it up again for 2 minutes. So there's two chambers inside here, and now they're mixing together. Okay, so now we've got, it says here we've got 24 hours to use this can up. I'm currently wearing a mask. I'm going to use some cardboard to where I did not mask up.
So the two-part nature of this product means that it is an activated product. So that means it's going to harden, and that's a lot different than a typical spray can product. So there's a chemical reaction which will harden it. Now the product in the can is really good for covering areas like if you have a color, you want to hide some color. It does have some filling capabilities. If you have a lot of work, I wouldn't recommend it, but for covering and feathering, I think it's really good for that. It's just very convenient.
And I've used one can of it, and I guess you can kind of see what one can will cover. It's the darker stuff, right? And this was just areas where I had little scratches or something that I wanted to fill in. And the nice thing about it is it dries pretty smooth. It goes on smooth and it dries smooth. So with that being said, now I'm going to start sanding with 600 grit wet and dry paper. I'm using a combination of sanding blocks for the most of it, right? And then occasionally you'll need to get a soft piece, and that's for doing stuff, you know, where you're getting kind of close to tight spots and so on. In areas such as this, you can often shape it and bend it to get in there. And then as a finishing touch, I'll just run it with my hand like this. So it is often an iterative process. You make great strides, but then you have little things that you need to circle back and address again. Always a good idea to change out the water and put a little simple green in there. So now I'm gonna do a final, well, semi-final sand with 600 on the door and the fender that were most damaged. And I'm gonna use the large block, and I'm still gonna do the X pattern here. Just to really finesse. And just make sure to get in all of these little areas here. These are shouldn't be overlooked, because probably the first area to start chipping. And don't worry so much if you burn through the primer and start showing base or any of the other colors. What matters most is just getting rid of any imperfections.
Anywhere there is exposed metal, we do want to put some etching primer on that.
Now I'm going to be using some, let's call it professional grade aerosol primer. It is a single stage. It's lacquer based. It goes on and it dries fast. It's not the same as something you just buy from you know, Walmart or something, because it is a lacquer based thing. So the good thing about that is when it dries, it's dry. You don't have to worry about it not being dry like a typical aerosol sort of spray. However, it doesn't build up very good. I just use it to cover little bleed through stuff like this. Like that filler there is bleeding through after I've sanded it over and over. And it just seems to keep bleeding through. So I'm going to put a little light mist on it. And that's just to seal it in. And then hopefully when I spray it, when I sand it this time, I don't bleed through it again. If I do, I'll put a little more of this on there.
Here I'm filling up my filter's desiccant can. You need to have some way of removing moisture from the lines, even if it's just one of these that you attach to the end of your spray gun. All 914s have the threads in them to accept a passenger mirror. All you need to do is find that thread and then drill through it. What I'm doing here is using a little punch to help me locate the thread. And now we're all set to accept a factory stock passenger mirror. And continuing on with 600 grit sanding. Back to this tedious area. If you can, it makes sense to just pull the fresh air assembly out of the car. The only problem with that is you have to remove the gas tank in order to do that. In a previous video, we painted the underside of the trunks and inside the trunks, so we have to be careful here not to get overspray. So we typically end up masking and sealing off the trunks. I had to pause in the middle of doing all this because we had a very rare solar eclipse that was passing through over our area.
And let's see. No?
Well, I tried to capture the eclipse using the welding mask and a camera, but it didn't really work out that well.
There we go. Okay.
Always gives me an eerie feeling when there's eclipse. That noise you can hear is people are shooting fireworks. And this is a nice little effect that it made as the light filtered through the leaves. And everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon. This was the annual solar eclipse of 2023, also known as the Great American Solar Eclipse. And in this region, we had about 90% blockage, which means that the sun actually appeared as a ring of fire instead of a ball of fire. This is not the total solar eclipse, which happened in 2024. I also have some video of that, and that one was much more spectacular. Alright, back to work. Here's our beautiful Alaska blue in the can. Taping up a car for paint can take a lot of time. Don't discount this. You need at least half a day or so, if not more. You always want to do a test spray on something other than the car body before you start spraying. And here's a prime example why there was something wrong with my gun. I had recently replaced the packing in it, and it was leaky. Please come back for the next episode where we will actually be painting the car. I apologize that these videos just seem to go on maybe a bit too long, but they do show a lot of detail. If you haven't, please give us a like and a subscribe. And until next time, tschüss.